Iggy Pop doesn't look like a I don't know, a Jack Link's beef jerky.
Yeah,
in that
not
picture.
yet. Welcome to Season 2 of Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve. I'm Dave.
And I'm Steve.
Well, new year, new season.
Yes, it certainly is.
Certainly is. Do anything fun in the off season, Steve?
Well, considering that we're not really taking that big of a break in real time, I'll just have to predict. Let's see. Over Thanksgiving, I fought back the armies of the undead, and then during Christmas, I took those same undead, and then I harnessed them into treadmills as Vermin Supreme imagined.
Nice.
And that all happened because this was recorded after that and not before that.
Yes.
It's canon.
It's canon, yeah. In the world of the show. In the world of the show, you know, we were right on the election special. You're just listening to the wrong reality.
Sucks to be y'all.
Yeah.
It was crazy when Bernie Sanders just went up and stabbed them both with a sword and just proclaimed himself God Emperor. I was not expecting that from Bernie Sanders, but
Yeah.
you know.
And now we all have UBI and healthcare. Sucks to be you.
I'm not usually for dictatorships, but you know, a benevolent Bernie dictatorship ain't so bad.
No. So anyway, new season. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of records. We're going to have guests through most of these episodes. But for this first one, we figure we'll do just the two of us, then start bringing people in.
Yes. Also, it's easier for us to schedule things because our usual guests have like families and lives, and I live by myself, and Dave and his partner
Don't have kids.
don't have kids. Yes. For season 2, I'm planning on bringing in like my favorite records rather than weird oddball records. So that's my theme for this season.
I'm doing a little bit of both. I'm doing some of my favorites, some weird oddball ones, but I figured we'd start out strong and we would do one of my all-time favorite records, do my favorite proto-punk record, and my favorite record that was done by this particular artist. Steve, what do you know about the Stooges?
Not as much as I should. Just like I said during the David Bowie episode, the Stooges and Iggy Pop in general is somebody that I've always wanted to get into. I just never have for whatever reason.
I think this is probably the best jumping on point with them. This is, well, you've seen the title of the episode. This is the Stooges' second album, Funhouse. My main sources for what I am going to use to talk about any of the context are going to be the jumbled parts of my memory that will mix and match pieces of the book Please Kill Me by Legs McNeil and Gillian McCain, From the Voidoids to the Velvets by Clinton Hayland, and the Jim Jarmusch documentary about the Stooges. So there will be pieces from all of those mixed and matched for anything. So maybe I'll remember them wrong. Who can say?
And I will use this opportunity to mention that Iggy Pop was in an episode of Deep Space Nine where he played a Vorta in probably one of the best episodes where the Ferengi have to play a heist to get their Meemaw back.
I also liked it that he played like their neighbor's dad in The Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Oh, yeah. I know there's other things that I've seen him in. I'm trying to think what else he's been in, because he just like pops up in places randomly.
Yeah, he was in He played himself in Coffee and Cigarettes, speaking of Jim Jarmusch, opposite Tom Waits. Yeah.
There's a really funny Henry Rollins story where he was talking about how he tried to outperform Iggy Pop and he couldn't.
Yeah. And Iggy Pop destroyed the stage that The Cure had set up as the headliner.
Yeah. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Henry Rollins seems like a kind of guy that have a ton of energy too. So for him to be outdone by an older Iggy Pop at that time must have been really interesting.
What's funny is like that story where he's like two different people. There's Jim Osterberg, just like a normal soft-spoken guy from Michigan. But then when he goes on stage, the iguana takes over. That's what the Iggy stands for, is iguana.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And then he'll just be intense and rub himself down with peanut butter and roll around on broken glass. And then he'll just come off stage covered in blood and peanut butter and be like, oh, hey, how's it going?
It'd be fun to see Iggy Pop and Bruce Dickinson do a frontman off.
It would. He's like, I don't know, 80 now, something like that.
Yeah, Bruce is up there too.
Yeah. You see videos of him performing in the recent past, though, and he no longer stage dives. But other than that, it's still pretty intense physical performance. Apparently, I think he said this on an interview with the guy who died, the cooking guy, Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, yeah.
He said in an interview with Anthony Bourdain that anymore he just takes care of himself really well, and his entire diet is salads and white wine.
Well,
stopped doing drugs a while ago, which is why he outlived a lot of his peers who were doing the same kind of stuff at the same time.
You know what that means? Iggy Pop is qualified to be president.
Yes.
After our Bernie Sanders dictatorship is over.
Yeah.
We're not. So he might be in his 90s by then, and that's even better.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, we were talking about Funhouse, which was their second record. It's my personal favorite because at this point they'd kind of gelled as a band. Their first album is good, but the first side is a lot better than the second side, primarily because they realized they didn't have enough songs to fill a record. Like a lot of their early shows were like filling the time with noise sets where they would mic a blender full of water. And they didn't put that on the album, unfortunately. And so, like, I think a couple, if not several, of the side 2 songs that don't really work that well, they're just kind of there on the first album, were written a couple days before in the hotel room. And so by this point, this was like a year later, they'd really gelled as a band. They were able to put out a full album, and they had added a 5th member for at least part of the album. So, Steve, why don't you take a look at the art?
All right, so we have the Stooges font in a very late 60s, early 70s stylized font. And then you got Iggy Pop here, and he doesn't look like a stick of Jack Link's beef jerky yet, because this is the late 60s, I assume, when the photograph was taken. It might have been the 70s.
Yeah, well, the album came out in 1970, so all the work was probably done in 69, yeah.
Nice. And then there's another person over here. I don't know who that is. And then it was released on Elektra Records, which is the same label Metallica was on. Turning around to the back here, we got... Is that the same person? Who is that?
It's different members of the band. You can... When you do the gatefold, you can try to mix and match who's who.
Okay, because they look exactly the same in each shot. Let's see. And then... opening up here, we got the 4 members of the band. We got Iggy Pop in the center there with his ass out, which is sexy, of course.
But his shirt on.
Yeah, that's weird. Well, you know, he had his shirt off on the cover, so
yeah,
they didn't want to overdo it because, you know, the audience would get too horny to listen to the records, and then that would affect sales. So
yeah.
And then we got Ron Ashton on the right, Dave Alexander on the left, and Scott Ashton there in the back. And they got some pictures of some vintage microphones. Probably weren't vintage at the time of this, but they're vintage from our point of view.
Yeah, current microphones.
Yes. And then we'll be doing side one, and we got 4 songs on side one. We have Down on the Street, Loose, TVI, and Dirt.
Yep.
And it looks like everything was written by the Stooges. And, Stephen McKay is on the back for tenor saxophone, since he wasn't in the sleeved reference. And it was produced by Don Galliucci.
Yes.
And arranged by the Stooges, engineered by Brian Ross Meering, recorded at Elektra Sound Recorders in Los Angeles, and photography was done by Ed Cariff, and art direction by Robert Heimel.
It's interesting that they went to LA to record it. This is kind of an LA record. They were from Michigan, though.
Ah, I didn't know they were from Michigan.
Yeah, they're from the Detroit area, Ann Arbor, I think.
Oh, okay. You think Iggy Pop and Ted Nugent ever partied together?
They probably did. They probably did. They were doing their thing around the same time. The MC5 were doing their thing. They knew each other. It was really, like, the whole proto-punk thing was really starting. MC5 were more focused on politics. Like, they started the White Panther Party, which it was about doing an equivalent to the Black Panther Party to be in solidarity with the Black Panther Party, while the Stooges were just wanted to shoot heroin in the house they all lived in together, except for Scott Ashton. So, Ron Ashton was the one who didn't do heroin. Scott did. Scott was the drummer. Ron was the guitar player. They're brothers. Ron was the voice of reason in the band, in that he didn't do needle drugs.
Gotcha. Around this time, I think old Ted was in the Amduke Boys, and he would deny that he does drugs, but I mean, he was in a fucking psychedelic band.
Yeah. This album is a proto-punk album, but it's also a psychedelic album. You'll definitely hear that as we listen to it.
Yeah.
You'll also notice that the songs are longer than what punk songs tended to end up being. I think the runtime's at the end of all of them. There's like 2 7-minute songs. And
recently you compared one of the songs that I brought into the band to a Stooges song. So I'm expecting something kind of similar to that. Maybe like some similarities to Master Reality era Sabbath, maybe.
Yeah, somewhat. Their original name was the Psychedelic Stooges, but they just shortened it to the Stooges. I think they thought it was too long, and they were at first worried about being compared too much to the Three Stooges. But they did draw a lot from the Three Stooges, at least, in terms of...
Now, in the Elf episode, I think they should have kept Electric Elves, but I do think I like the shortening to the Stooges better.
Yeah.
So I think that was a overall good pick.
For the most part, I don't like it when people put the word psychedelic in their band name. Like, I like the Psychedelic Furs. I don't think it's a good band name.
Yeah.
And we're gonna put it on. We're gonna put it on here, and then I will tell some of the wild stories that I've heard from those books and documentaries after we listen to the first 4 songs of the album.
All right. I'm gonna start a band called the Post Grunge Furs. That was terrible. In 2010, Nigerian songwriter Billy Bao and his band went into the studio exactly 40 years after the recording of the album and recorded their album Buildings from Bilbao, using all titles and song times for their own songs, except 1970, which was updated as 2010, and LA Blues, which is called Lagos Blues.
Nice.
That's cool.
All right. Well, that was side 1 of Funhouse by the Stooges. Steve, what did you think?
God damn, that was that was fucking awesome. Every single moment of that, from start to finish, was just a giant cluster of bangers.
Yeah. So, when the question comes up of what's an album you consider a perfect album, like every track is great.
Yeah.
This is my first answer.
I haven't even heard the second half yet, and I already believe you, so.
Yeah. There's a reason this is one of my favorite albums. There's a reason why I think this is the Stooges' best album, because they only put out 3 albums, and the first one I mentioned the points where it drags, and then the third one, it was years later, and there were some slight shifts to personnel, which means it doesn't have like the same cohesiveness, and there's a few songs on there that don't stand out to me. But yeah, this one's just, it's a band who is very confident in what they're doing, and everyone is firing on all cylinders at the same time, and it's absolutely perfect. Everyone is contributing exactly what they should be, from every drum fill to every little point where the guitar goes from rhythm to a little lead lick, to every bass note, to every grunt and sub-vocalization Iggy does to fill in the gaps in some spots. Like, he's a great singer, but I think in this album you really hear that he started as a drummer just because he knows how to rhythmically fill space when the song requires it.
Yeah, what I noticed about this album, or at least the side of the album, but I imagine that will continue, is it sounds like it transcends time a bit. Like, it does have a 1969, 1970 vibe, but it also sounds like it could have came out in the late 80s or early 90s or the 2010s. Like, it's just one of those that it sounds very modern for coming out in the 70s. Like, first of all, the huge sounding bass line is not something I hear a lot from like other records of that era. Like, the first thing that comes to mind is maybe Geezer Butler's playing in Black Sabbath, or Roger Glover's playing in Deep Purple. But even that I don't think sounds nearly as giant and muscular. Like, it sounds like a modern bass line.
Yeah.
From the descriptions I've heard of Iggy Pop live performances, I've heard plenty of people like Henry Rollins talk about how insane he is. I'd say they did a great job of capturing that energy in the studio, which I have to imagine is very difficult.
And yeah, Dave Alexander was a great bass player, and this is unfortunately his last album with the band. After this album, because of all the drugs they were doing, they had a hard time following it up for a little while, and it was taking a toll on everyone's mental health. And how that ended up working out for Dave is he got fired from the band and moved back in with his mom and died. Iggy Pop is the only member of the band who is alive at this point. The saxophone player, who we haven't heard yet on this side, died in 2015. Both the Ashton brothers died in the aughts at different times. And then, yeah, Dave died in the 70s. Like, I think the band was still together when he died. Like, he gets a shout out as having died in a song that mourned like former band members on Iggy's first solo record in 77.
Imagine sitting in lawn chairs at the end of time. It's going to be like Iggy Pop and Ozzy Osbourne, just absolutely decrepit, but still going. Just sitting together going, oh man, it's been a hell of a run.
Yeah. Everyone we worked with is dead. Yeah.
I would have at one time included Lemmy in that list, but unfortunately,
yeah. Well, until this past year, I would have included Shane MacGowan in that, but he died too. I remember someone once pointed out to me that how weird it was that Shane MacGowan outlived Michael Jackson, and no one in the '80s would have called that. But yeah, this is easily one of my favorite records. Every member of the band is operating at their peak. I think the fact that Ron Ashton, the guitar player, was the only one not on heroin kind of helped ground it to some degree, and it's interesting that it's the guitar player that's grounding it rather than the rhythm section. Although Dave was a really great bass player and was good at coming up with like a really interesting bass line and being willing to just repeat it with minimal fills, just kind of letting it snake through the whole song while everyone else kind of goes on their own tangents.
It always surprised me when I'd read stories about Megadeth, especially their early years and how they were all on heroin. And he had that like the rhythm section on Peace Sells, like the whole album is like a jazz rhythm section, and they're all just like playing speed metal on heroin. I just think that concept is amazing. But it also tells me it's too bad heroin destroys lives, because apparently it's one hell of a creative drug.
Yeah, it always surprises me how many like great heroin albums are like high energy, fast tempo albums, because it's like, it's an opioid. Isn't it supposed to make you want to go to sleep?
Yeah, for me, opioids make me throw up and take a nap. So yeah, I couldn't imagine.
I remember the time I was on Oxy after some surgery. I woke up in the most pain I had ever been in, and swallowed a pill, and then fell asleep face down on my pillow. I guess if you do it enough, you build up a tolerance, and I don't know, yeah.
One time when I was a gas station attendant, I was on Vicodin, and it actually made working in a gas station tolerable, so I could see why people would pop pills.
I bet, yeah. Yeah, the house that they were living in at the time was called the Fun House, or they called it that. And so this is kind of about the house that they lived in the Detroit area, and shot heroin, and that Iggy ended up living with Nico, as in the Velvet Underground and Nico, for a while, like as his live-in girlfriend, while the rest of the band was just there and getting the clap from her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He, like, after she had moved out because the house was disgusting and he realized that there was something wrong with his dick, he, like, whipped it out in front of Ron Ashton because Ron Ashton was the only one who wasn't just, completely fucked up at that time. I was like, hey, is there something wrong with this? And Ron was like, yeah, you should go to a doctor. And that was about the time Ron moved out.
Oh, God. This reminds me of when I read Slash's autobiography, and they were talking about how they lived in a storage unit together in LA, and they built like a bed, and like Duff and Slash would like have chicks over, and they'd be like all in the same area. So very sounds like Guns N' Roses lived a even trashier version of that.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's go track by track here. We got Down on the Street. All of my songs overall kind of have similar notes, but I think uniquely on this one, I put chunky guitar riff and cool guitar solo and fantastic energy overall. I mean, they all had fantastic energy, so.
Yeah, this is a perfect album. This is not my favorite song on the album. I mean, I love this song. It's a great song, but it is the perfect song to open the album, I think.
Yeah, it's one heck of an opener. I'll say that.
Yeah. I think the way the guitar riff is, and just like the way it comes in, and then Iggy going, oh! over it is just, it sets the tone for the whole thing, and you know what you're in for.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is I like the main guitar riff from all of them, but I think this is just the perfect one to establish the mood, let everyone know where they're going with it.
The chunky guitar tone on it is just fabulous. That's the kind of tone that you wish you could just naturally have.
Yeah. It's one of the shorter songs on the album too, which I like starting with the shorter one. Just get the burst of energy real quick before asking people to settle in.
Yeah. Then the next song, Loose, again had that massive bass line as a huge backbone with the cool oscillating guitar just kind of going around the whole song, wrapping the whole thing together.
Yeah. I have a hard time figuring out if I think that this song is about sex or about heroin.
Why not both?
It could be about both. Layers. It has layers. I stick it deep inside because I'm loose. That could be, like a rather progressive take, really, of Iggy placing the judgment for having a lot of sexual partners on himself, but using the term that's typically used for women in that regard about it. But I also think it could be about, putting a needle into your vein and you stick it deep inside. It's hard to find the spot. And then, yeah, he's loose, like he's open, and yeah.
I wonder if, maybe it had an intended thing. It's like, hey, I'm going to make them think it's about sex, but it's actually about sticking a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
I could see that.
It's probably the simplest of the, composition-wise. It's, the simplest of the songs, but it works really well, too. For a song that could be about heroin, it's just so high energy.
Yeah. They must have the type of brain where if you do heroin, it makes you more active.
or they were probably all just really active people, and they did heroin to come down from all of this.
Next song, TVI.
So, what do you think TVI means?
Oh, I have no idea.
So, Ron and Scott Ashton had a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she and her friends had a code word about guys they wanted to fuck. And it was TVI, and it stood for Twat Vibe I.
Oh, I see.
And she had a TVI on Iggy, and she had sex with Iggy at one point, or probably a few points, several points. And so half the band is playing on a song about the lead singer having sex with their sister.
God, with the way he is on stage, getting fucked by Iggy Pop has to be like the most intense experience anyone could ever have.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
There was a time, like, at the very beginning of the band, so like 68, 67 maybe, where Iggy was married briefly and the marriage fell apart because he was having sex with his bandmate's sister at that time.
Well, he couldn't keep his Jack Link's jerky in.
No. But yeah, that's, like, the lyrics to this are really simple, you know, like they wanted to call it at first See That Cat because, you know, see that cat down on her back. Yeah, that part. And that would have been, that's such a worse title for the song, so I'm kind of glad she cued him into, like, her code word with her friends, because TVI sounds mysterious.
The chaotic guitar playing, chaotic vocals were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was overall a great song, and the ending riff reminded me of an Audioslave song.
Yes.
So, Tom Morello, I don't know if you... I'm assuming you heard that before, and it would be funny if he was like, oh shit, I did rip that off or something. I don't know. Or, I don't know, me and Dave ripped each other off without knowing it, so he might have not even realized it.
It's possible. Yeah. Like that he heard it at some point too and just forgot that he heard it.
Yeah.
This was, when I first heard this album, this was my favorite track up until that point. My favorite tracks came later, but like TVI was my favorite track for its runtime, basically. Because, yeah, that was my favorite so far, because, like, I liked the first two tracks a lot, and then when I heard that, I was like, ooh, this is even better. Like, it keeps getting better. This album keeps going, it keeps getting better.
Yeah.
Which leads us to track 4, Dirt, which was my favorite track of this side, and my favorite track up to that point when I first heard the album.
It was a nice break at that point because you had 3 very high energy songs, and then you slowed down into a proto-grunge song, I would say, even. And I think it's funny that it's called Dirt because I could hear Alice in Chains doing this song and Lane singing it.
Oh, definitely. It's also, I think, my favorite bass line on the album. And maybe that's because it's slow enough that you hear the bass on it. Like, another reason why this album's excellently mixed is you always hear the bass, which is one of the reasons why I love it. But like in this one, the bass really stands out because everyone's going slower and you can just kind of hear it snaking through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely an album you want to listen to if you're a low-end connoisseur.
Dirt is my favorite on this side, and I think one of the reasons why I latched onto it as my favorite when I first heard it, because it's like, you know, I don't have a lot in common with Iggy to some degree in that I've never lived that wild of a life, but I can relate to the feeling of I'm dirt and I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing song. I like when Iggy slows down as a frontman to some degree too. I like hearing him do the oohs and the humming rather than the frenzied yelps too. Like, he still does frenzied yelps, and no one does frenzied yelps better than Iggy, but just to hear him do this kind of delivery rather than what we've heard on the previous 3 songs, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, it adds dynamics to the album that are definitely needed, and he seems to be a very dynamic frontman.
Yeah. So a fun story about this album is it was my favorite when I did this, but this was the last album I listened to before everything shut down for the pandemic in 2020.
Oh, wow.
I knew things were about to shut down because I was paying attention to the news, and I was nervous and terrified, and everything was awful. And I was like, I'm going to just put on this album because it will make me feel better. And it did.
Good thing we're in the universe where dictator Bernie Sanders is dealing with the coming bird flu.
Yeah. Could you imagine how bad it would be if you were dealing with a coming bird flu that's already spread to humans with a head of HHS who eats roadkill?
Well, you know, since we broadcast to all universes, I'm sorry to Universe A for that. Over here in Universe 1, we we got dictator Bernie Sanders. So maybe we'll make enough vaccines that we can send it through a portal.
Watch, RFK will resign before he's confirmed after we record this.
I could see that, to
Yeah.
be honest.
My prediction is he won't be popular because he wants to ban treats.
Oh yeah, I keep seeing just like everybody's just like, oh wait, we're not gonna have porn, we're not gonna have
Cheez-Its.
Yeah, we're not gonna have video games. We're gonna have a Christian theocracy. Like nobody wants to actually live under a Christian theocracy. So
No,
I think,
I think there's going to be swift backlash.
yeah,
But we'll see.
they'll see. You know, we're in the timeline where we could just kind of peek in at it because we have a what's that Vatican thing called, a chronovisor?
Yes,
Except it's a universal version. So
and it's powered by Flexo the cat right here.
yes, we just stick it right up his cat hole, and it powers it.
He's like, don't fucking touch me right now.
All right, so side 2, we got 3 songs. We got 1970, Funhouse, and L.A. Blues.
My favorite track is on this side.
Is it 1970?
It is.
Called it.
Yeah.
What can we expect from this side?
Well, there is a 5th person credited who we haven't heard yet. You can expect that.
All right.
And you can expect, and as that element is introduced, you can expect it to get more freeform and chaotic.
Okay, I'm liking that.
Yeah. So it's like the most structured songs are on side 1, and side 2 they start to get into more of their early shows, which were more of like freeform noise jams. They don't use the same tools that they did. So I really wish they had done a recording where they did have the blenders full of water mic'd up, but we don't live in that world, sadly.
Nope. That's the world where John Nance Gardner took over instead of Truman.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have anything else to talk about for this side, or?
Nope.
All right. We're moving on to side 2. And we're going.
All right. And that was side 2 of Funhouse. Steve, what did you think?
Well, goddamn. As you said, this is a perfect album, I'd say.
Yeah.
There isn't a moment on this album I didn't like. And particularly on side 2, I enjoyed the transition from structured, repetitive songs to songs that just embrace the chaos. Because like 1970, like when it started out, it had a really like infectious groove, and then while we were listening to it, you said like the vibe just changes when the sax comes in, and then suddenly there's sax for the rest of the album, and it really that marks the start or that marks like the end of the transition from like a normal like psychedelic rock album to just a chaotic art rock piece, which I was very, very into.
Yeah. When the album finishes, I feel like I need a cigarette. Like a lot of people will say that this album feels like it's either fucking or fighting. While I'm listening to it, it feels like fighting. But at the end, it feels like, did I just finish fucking? Yeah. Like, while the album was playing, there were times where it was like, I didn't sit down while listening to this. Normally, I sit down on the couch. But while the album was playing, I was like standing up and pacing and was trying to stop myself from like geysering beer up in the air or kicking your CRT TV right there. But yeah, so while you're listening to it, it feels like fighting. But when you finish it, it feels post-coital.
Well, I will say I was bouncing up and down in my chair, so it definitely fucks. I'll say that.
Yeah. It's both a fucking and a fighting album, and that makes it perfect.
Yeah. It's completely down my alley, like 100%. Like some of my favorite bands are grunge bands or alternative bands or like stoner rock bands and that kind of stuff, and all of those bands, desert rock bands, and all of those bands, I could tell have this album in their collection. At least majority of the members of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, right now we're working on our song Eradicate, and Dave mentioned that it sounded like a Stooges song, and I said I was trying to go for Early Soundgarden, and now that I hear this, I'm like, oh, that's because Early Soundgarden was like the late 80s version of the Stooges.
Exactly, yeah.
And I mean, you know, scrolling through the Wikipedia page here, I mean, here's some artists who cited this as a favorite album. You got Joey Ramone, Mark Smith, Jack White, Nick Cave, Michael Gira, Buzz Osborne, Aaron North, Henry Rollins, and Steve Albini. So
yeah, you can hear this album in stuff from all of their bands.
Oh yeah, like I'm a pretty big Melvins fan too, and especially their really early material, and their early material really reminds me of this.
Yeah, I like, one of the things I really like about the vocals on this is I like the way it will go from melodic to screeching, then right back to melodic, just like at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, that's one thing I noted on Funhouse is the range on his vocals, and it's not like he's not a technical singer by any means.
No,
but I mean, he'll go from like a lower register type of thing to just a visceral scream, and there were moments on it where I'm like, God, he almost sounds like he's singing black metal.
Yeah.
There's a giant range to Iggy Pop, which is fantastic to hear. You know, a lot of times you don't get a singer at their best in the studio, I don't feel like, and it sounds like he just recorded like he does on stage in the studio.
Yeah. I also liked how they brought the saxophone in it, and I liked it that it didn't overpower any of the other instruments. Like I could still hear the bass, I could still hear the drums, and most surprisingly, I could still hear the guitar through it.
One thing I noticed, because I'm sitting right between the speakers, and I could really tell how much work they put into making the sax and the guitar interact with using stereo effects, which had to be super hard at that time. But yeah, it sounded like they blended together, but not in a way that neutralized each other, but more I could hear the guitar and the sax interacting in each channel in a really unique way.
This is a good album to listen to on headphones if you get the chance. Yeah.
The stereo, and I noticed it particularly on that one, and it makes me want to go back and listen closer to the other ones. But whoever produced this did a fantastic job.
Yeah, the producer did a really great job of just kind of letting the band play to their strengths and then figuring out what to emphasize based off of it.
Yeah.
The common belief is that this is their best produced album. It was produced, Don Galucci. Yeah, he also played organ on the single version of Down on the Street, which maybe we'll listen to after this, just to be complete. I don't think I've ever heard the single version because I've only listened to the album, but I can hear organ fitting in really well with this era of the band.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And their first album was produced by, and he's also like the lowest profile of their producers, and I think he did the best job with the production. Like, two of my favorite artists produced their other two albums, but I don't think they did it quite as well as this guy did. Like, the first album was produced by John Cale, who was the bass player, organ player, viola player for Velvet Underground at first. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, I think they brought him on right after he got fired from the Velvet Underground, and he kind of produced them and mixed them like they were the Velvet Underground because that was the closest frame of reference at that time for what they were doing.
I could see why you would think that, yeah.
Yeah, but like they're pretty different from it, and I think this album emphasizes what's different about them. And so like I just think like at the time they were a band that had 4 songs and a bunch of noise experiments, and they had to throw together enough songs to fill out the album. And so it was just like, well, this is what's familiar to me. Let's put it together.
Yeah.
And then their third album, Raw Power, was produced by the band itself. but that was unlistenable because Iggy was trying to make it so that it would physically hurt to listen to. and so like his friend who had given them the chance to even release the third album, David Bowie, kind of helped come in and clean stuff up. And I've heard the version of the album that doesn't have what Bowie did, and it is harder to listen to. It's rawer, but it's harder to listen to, and I think Bowie fixed it, honestly. But I think it doesn't have the same cohesiveness. Like, I think this album really caught everyone firing on all cylinders and making it work, and understood what made the band work as a whole. And I don't think the version they did in 73, the version of the band in 73 of Raw Power, was capable of making another album like this. It was, by Raw Power, it was a bit of a different lineup. There's no longer sax, which is unfortunate. And Ron Ashton had quit for a while, probably after seeing Iggy's dick. And they'd replaced him with a different guitarist named James Williamson. But then, Dave Alexander had dropped out and he hadn't died yet, but he wasn't in it at all anymore. And so they brought back Ron as the bass player. And Ron doesn't do the same. Like, Ron is a much better guitar player than bass player, in my opinion, and that he knows what to do with the instrument more. And so it's a different band, basically. Even though it has three of the same members, it sounds different. They're at a different place in life.
Yeah. That's why it's always like frustrating when I see people like trying to hound a band into making them like get back together with their classic lineup. It's like, if they don't feel it, like, don't try to pressure them into it, because they're just gonna make inferior art. I mean, that's why I really respect like David Byrne. Wouldn't get Talking Heads back together because he doesn't feel it would artistically benefit him. And similarly, like, I've seen, like, since Neil Peart died, like, a lot of people offer the two remaining members of Rush like tons of money to go out on tour, and it's like, I can't imagine that band working without Neil Peart in the band. So
no, like, the first album without Neil Peart is not very good. Like, it's fine, but it's like, it doesn't really give an indication of what what really made Rush work. And
Working Man is a banger, but the rest of it is a little fine. But
like, it just sounds like generic 70s rock to me. When they brought in the prog elements and all that, and just like Neil Peart's eccentricities as a songwriter and his interest in science fiction and all that is what really made Rush. Like, no disrespect to the other members of the band, but it was like the alchemy of the three of them is what made it work. Well, like with the Stooges, the alchemy of the 4 to 5 of them is what made them work.
Right.
There's an alternate reality where, like, because James Williamson was brought in before Ron had quit the band, and Dave had been fired. And so there's a version of the band that existed for, like, I don't know, a month or two, where it was 2 guitar players and saxophone. And I wish that version had recorded something, because James Williamson is a good guitar player, but I would have liked to have seen like how he and Ron would have interacted playing the same instrument, but we don't get to see that. They're too volatile for that to have lasted anyway. So
it's funny bringing up alternate realities. When I was listening to Funhouse, my first thought was, this is what the Alliterates would have sounded like had I not switched from guitar to drums. Because initially I was the guitar player, and then our guest Pete, aka Mr. Fucking Puritanical, aka Pedro de la Pedro, aka what was the other one?
I don't remember anymore. Don Nosferatu. There we go.
Originally, he was on drums, and Andrew has been through every lineup, right?
Andrew wasn't on the version with Pete.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a universe where we sound more like this, whereas now I think we sound more like, I don't know, Killing Joke.
Yeah. We got more industrial. We got more industrial when we switched you to drums and brought in the more traditional rock and roll guitar player, which is weird, but yeah.
Yeah, it would have been a completely different band. So, Good thing we have the chronovisor, so we can peek into that universe and see how we're doing.
Yeah, where we have fewer songs, but they're a lot longer, probably. Yeah.
I think since playing in the Alliterates, I've embraced shorter songwriting, because it looks like my my solo songs are all between like 3 to 5 minutes long. So
yeah,
I think I suppose it's because it's harder to bounce things off of yourself than it is like other members of the band. Because like in Megaton, me and Serena had a lot of interplay, I think, that stretched out the songs, I think, in interesting ways. So yeah, I haven't found a reason to make long songs in my solo project. So
yeah. Have we gone track by track yet?
No.
Okay. So 1970, my favorite song on the album.
Yes. Starts out with an infectious groove, and then the saxophone comes in, and then it's also chaotic.
Yeah, I thought this song was pretty interesting in that it's the one where Ron does the least kind of like putting in lead lines in between the rhythm parts. Like it's the one where the guitar and bass sound the most locked into each other throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Which I think is pretty interesting. I think that might be why this was my favorite song initially, is it's the one that sounds most like a traditional punk song.
Yeah.
Until the sax comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a reason why The Damned covered it on their first album, which was before The Damned got really let like their psychedelic and goth influences really shine through, where they were more like a Ramones style band, like early on. And so like that was, and they didn't do it with the sax, so it was all just locked in. But yeah, I liked the way, I liked the restraint in the song too. Like it was a fast, high energy song, but like the guitar was doing less than it usually does. And that let the sax really shine when it came in, like after 60 to 75% of the song had already ended, and just like really bring it up a notch. And just the way the sax comes in is like the perfect way to introduce another instrument into the mix, just like throwing it in late, like doing the dynamic, just really making you pay attention to it once it comes.
Yeah, and then when Funhouse came on, the complexity of the electric guitar, I felt, got amped up, and then it was, like I said earlier, was interplaying with the guitar, and the sax were interplaying in a really interesting way. And then, of course, you got Iggy in a wide range of different vocal styles, just kind of splattering his lyrics all over it.
Yeah, that one was the one that felt like it's like, okay, we've introduced all the elements. Now let's just build on everything we've already done to some degree too. Because yeah, you had the guitar back to doing like the really interesting lead stuff, and then you had the sax playing off of that on the other side. And the rhythm section was as locked in as they have been through the whole thing. And it's Iggy going from singing to screaming back to singing the most out of anything. This is the one that, yeah, it felt like it was just like all the elements. We have all the elements. We've introduced them. Let's just do it all at once and make sure you can hear each part. Like there was no moment where I didn't hear a drum fill or I didn't hear the bass line. It was just like all there. It's like, yeah, even though I said 1970 is my favorite song, because it's the one that I think is the easiest to listen to by itself without listening to the whole album.
Yeah.
So it's the one you can like put on a mix or all that. This doesn't feel like a victory lap, because the next song feels like a victory lap. This one just feels like this album really does a great job at making sure each song that is on it justifies its existence. And this one is we're almost done, but we have everything on the table. So let's just show off everything on the table, basically.
Yeah, absolute wall of chaos. And it sounded like a song falling apart, but I mean that in a complimentary way.
Yeah. And then speaking of songs falling apart, LA Blues.
Oh, that's what I meant. LA Blues.
Yeah. Yeah, this one was all noise experiments. Like, it wasn't like all the parts together. It was the one where Ron was doing the most with just like feedback rather than playing a guitar part. Like he was playing guitar parts through it too, but he was relying much more on like the wall of feedback sound, and the bass. The bass is more chaotic, like you could still hear it, but it was less in control in a complimentary way. Like it was formless, structureless, but utterly compelling.
Yeah. And since we talked about the Alliterates, we can also plug our other project, Lucid Fugue. We have many songs that are like that.
Yeah.
Reminded me of, I don't know, escaping from a building while it's falling apart.
Yeah. Both the saxophone and the guitar sounded like burning.
Yeah, and then just you could hear like random vocalizations in the background that just make it like, I don't know, it almost feels like instead of running from a collapsing building, maybe it's like running through the jungle away from a crazed animal almost.
Yeah.
And
the crazed
since it's LA Blues,
singer.
I mean like jungle in the Welcome to the Jungle sense.
Yeah. I like how side 2 starts with the most structured the album will ever be and ends with the least structured the album is.
Well, and yeah, I imagine listening to it like off a CD or something as one piece, it probably sounds like one. Like it sounds like it all flows together. It starts with high energy, then low energy, then chaos.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like having listened to this album on CD many times, Dirt does flow really well into 1970. Like, yeah, just the little dip into the most structured, like, really works. And so, yeah, this is, one of my all-time favorite albums, and it is a perfect album, in my opinion. There's no track on it that I skip when I listen to it, and no track I would leave off, and it's in the perfect order. And, yeah, this is, in my opinion, the best album that anyone who worked on it has in their entire catalog.
Well, I will definitely be listening to this one again.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that I feel like this is an album where you find something else about it every time you listen to it.
Oh yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
And there's like little intricacies to the guitar parts. The drum fills are all like perfectly placed. And the bass, despite the fact that it's pretty straightforward, the way it interacts with each part around it is really fascinating. And yeah, like lyrically, there's not a lot to it, but that also means you really get to appreciate Iggy not necessarily as a lyricist, but as a vocalist, just like how he delivers the lines and like where he puts it, when he gets away from the microphone just to dance around, and when he decides to throw in a grunt to remind you that he's there. It's all right there. Like, one of the things from the Jim Jarmusch documentary that really stood out to me was Iggy was talking about, like, their close relationship to the MC5, which were a part of, like, kind of a communist project with the White Panther Party and all that. And he was like, yeah, the Stooges were never really that much about politics, but the way we operated as a band was communist in its own way, and that it was all an equal contribution.
Yeah. Which is how I think more bands should run it.
Yeah.
Since, I don't know, you always see bands like try to, I don't know, like I think about bands like Iced Earth from our election special, where one guy takes way too much credit for everything, and it's just like, dude, I mean, you couldn't have made this album without like everybody.
Yeah. Equal contribution was maybe why it couldn't have lasted, because it was all really volatile people with their own visions, and then one of them having to be the only grown up in the band, basically, not wanting to deal with that and quitting for a while. But yeah, it's like a lightning in the bottle moment where they were able to put out one of the best albums of all time just because they were all operating at their peak and all contributing the best that they could.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. So this season is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to try to pair some episodes with each other and that do some albums that are close to each other in terms of what they're going for, or have one that references each other and try to do the same guest for that. So that'll be fun. Steve, you said you're doing more just all-time favorite albums. So this will be, in some regards, will be a little less of the weird deep dives into the obscure corners of music as the first season was. But I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I'm looking through the list right now, and I've picked all relatively well-known albums, or at least well-known bands. In some cases, I picked like a more underrated release from that band, like Rush. I didn't pick like 2112. Megadeth. I didn't pick Peace Cells. And then I chose an Iron Maiden album, but I'm probably going to switch that to a Paul Iron Maiden album because rest in peace, Paul Di'Anno.
Yeah.
But yeah, I going for more of what I actually like rather than things that like interest me.
Yeah.
Whether that be good or bad. Because I don't know, like a preview alert for a cluster of episodes we're going to do for our 100th episode. As part of that, we're going to do Saint Anger by Metallica. And I just picked that up on vinyl because it was on sale. And it's like, I didn't pick it up because I like that album. It's a disaster, and I find it interesting because it's a disaster.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any of that this season. And then I also kind of have season 3 picked out, but I'll leave that to everybody's imagination.
Yeah. For me, a lot of what I was picking out for this one is what do I want to listen to with specific guests? And then what did I get a really good deal on at the record store recently? And let me tell you, I found a really cool record store in a smaller college town that had some incredibly reasonable prices. So this season probably have more albums that I bought recently than last season did. However, they aren't necessarily going to be new stuff a lot of the time because the gem finds in small college town record stores are often older stuff. But I think it's going to be fun. I am planning on at some point doing one episode where we aren't listening to something that's on vinyl or has ever been on vinyl, where we're watching a live DVD for side 1, and then the side 2 of it is the bonus tracks with the band's music videos.
Yes.
Because it is the Screamers who never put out a proper album.
I'm looking through the list and all the ones that I put Sean on, and he probably won't hate me this season.
No, I feel like I'm doing all stuff that I love this season, which will be interesting. This will be a good season, so stick around.
Yes. I don't know what's next, but it's going to be one of mine. So
yes.
Until next time.
We'll figure out which guest is available for next week.
Yes.
Until next time, catch you on the flip side.
Side B with Dave and Steve is a Floof Goof Studios production. You could find us on Instagram at KillRockMusicSWS and Dave_Diction. You can find us on Bluesky at KillRock Music and Beastmaster General. Check out our musical projects, The Alliterates and Lucid Fugue, on all major streaming platforms, and links to each at my website, killrockmusic.com. That's KILRAVOCK music.com. This also includes my past projects, Megaton and Valley of Shadows, and my current solo project, Kill Rock. You can also find Dave's past project, Gong Farmer, at GONGFERMOUR.bandcamp.com. Thanks.
Everyone we've worked with is dead.